Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Haslett Board of Education meeting for Monday, March 10th, 2025. Thank you all for being here. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will move on to the superintendent's report this evening.
Thank you, President Byrd. I've got a few items to report on today. First, last week's high school theater production of The Alibis was a success. Our students delivered a hilarious murder mystery comedy that showcased their incredible acting abilities and dedication to the arts. The performance was a testament to the strong arts programs we continue to foster in the district, and I want to commend all students, staff, volunteers involved in making the production such a success. Second, we have a staff retirement. Margaret Aboud-Barilli, our instructional technology specialist, has submitted her notice for retirement effective June 5th, 2025. For the past 9 years, she's served as our instructional technology specialist, supporting key district initiatives such as one-to-one technology implementation, classroom technology improvements, and the transition to remote learning during the pandemic. Her expertise is particularly crucial as we navigated those times. Margie's dedicated 22 years of combined service to our district and appreciate her dedication. On behalf of the district, we extended her gratitude and best wishes as she begins her next chapter in life. I'd also like to congratulate our winter athletes for their achievements this season. While there are too many individuals and team accomplishments to list here tonight without missing somebody, I do just want to wish special good luck to our girls basketball team, whose regional game is starting right now, actually, as I speak. So the student athletes across our district continue to make us proud through their performance, and their commitment to balancing academics and athletics is to be commended. Tonight, we say farewell to Rick Jensen, our Director of Finance, at his final board meeting. Though we've only worked together this past year, Rick has made my transition as a new superintendent significantly smoother. His financial expertise and dedication have been invaluable to our district for some years. Rick, we are grateful for all your service and wish you the best of luck. Thank you. I just want to welcome you to come back as an audience member at future meetings. Though I suppose that you've got other things you might be doing with your evenings after tonight. But yeah, thanks again, bud. And we just had a workshop, of course. Just want to thank you all. Before this meeting, our board continued conversations about the community insights for the Imagine 2030 strategic planning initiative that's underway. I appreciate the thoughtful conversations we had around the table, and as we work together to look at community input and shape the vision that will guide our district forward for the next 5 years. We remain committed to this collaborative process as we develop a roadmap to serve our students' evolving needs in the years ahead. And then last but certainly not least, I'd like to invite Dylan Leidick to share updates from the Student Advisory Committee. Dylan will provide us some insights into recent activities at the buildings, as well as discuss key topics emerging in the high school Student Advisory Committee recent session. So Dylan, the floor is yours, man. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Dylan Leidick, and I'm a senior here at the high school, and I am on the Haslett Superintendent Advisory Committee. We meet every month to talk about issues facing students and try and create solutions to make the school experience better for everybody. As a representative from the advisory to the board, I am pleased to share highlights from around the district with you this evening, as well as what we have been discussing in our advisory. At Wilkshire, parents were invited to the music informances, which means that they were invited to come to their students' music class to participate and learn about what music class looks like in an early childhood building. We had over 300 parents participate. Thank you to music teacher Claire Kaiser for organizing and providing this opportunity to families. Kindergarten enrollment opened March 1st. Please visit the Haslett website or the Wilkshire website for the link and more information. If you have any questions, please feel free to call the Wilkshire office. They are excited to meet all of our new kindergarten students. Students at Murphy have been nominating one classroom and one teacher each week as recognition for their great schoolwork, helping, and kindness throughout the school year. Each Wednesday, Mrs. Ford, Mrs. Feeney, and members of the Murphy Student Council join Mr. Hatch on the morning meeting via Google Meet to announce the honorees during the meeting, fostering a sense of pride and community within the school. Murphy Elementary School loves to celebrate their successes. Raleigh enjoyed their STEAM night. This year, students created projects from any sector of the STEAM area, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Staff and parents enjoyed seeing a variety of student projects. A recent point of pride at the middle school was their musical. Everyone is super proud of the cast and crew for all their hard work and dedication. Wilkshire students also came over and sang some songs to a couple of 7th grade classes and shared kindness hearts with our staff. It was a great time for everybody involved. At the high school, the school play The Alibis was performed on Friday, as Mr. Malley said, and Saturday. The band and choir also performed at festival. As we enjoyed a visit from Wilkshire, we also enjoyed a visit from Wilkshire's first graders, who shared kindness affirmations in a kindness song and chant with our students. At our last meeting of the advisory, we continued to work with the information we gathered from our student survey to make positive recommendations on how to improve student life in the high school. We also helped pitch our ideas for Imagine 2030 and gave information from the student perspective. Thank you.
Well, thanks, and really appreciate the updates, and Dylan has been so gracious to stay with us for the entire meeting, so he'll join us, and if you feel free to take notes, and at the end we'll give you an opportunity to ask any questions or make comments about what was discussed tonight. So appreciate you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dylan. Superintendent Malley. We will now move on to discussion items, and as we have been recently, I'm going to turn it over to Vice President Collins, and I will say this once again, I appreciate you and your Policy and Personnel Committee as we move through these revised board policies. This is a tremendous lift for you and the committee, so I appreciate that. And with that, we are going to have a first reading this evening of the 4,000 policies.
We are, and there are only 5,000s left after this. Thank you. And thank you, also, seriously, thank you to the committee. We had a 3-hour meeting the other night going through policy and other things, so I appreciate both committee members and all of you guys doing your homework and looking through the policies as well. So, okay, are you ready? Please stop me if I go too fast or if I misspeak about a number or something. This is the first reading of the 4,000 series of Troon policies. We are switching our policies from Neola to Troon. If these policies are adopted, they will take effect on August 1st, 2025. Some of the 4,000 series have already been adopted by the board in January of 2024, so we're not going through those again, just a heads up. This series covers district employees, and a lot of it is required by state and federal law. We also have a master agreement with our collective bargaining groups. Those can be found under the Transparency tab on the Haslett Public Schools website, just so everybody knows where they're looking. Okay, I'm going to take a deep breath. Policy 4101 is our non-discrimination policy. Many of the policies in the 4100s include our statements and the procedure for reporting violations of that policy. And the way that these are separated is it will go through professional staff, non-exempt staff, it sounds repetitive, then administrators, then the superintendent. So it covers separately everyone. Policy 4102 is about anti-harassment. Policy 4103 is about the protection of whistleblowers. Policy 4104 is about employment complaint procedures for allegations implicating civil rights. Policy 4105 discusses disability workplace accommodations for employees and applicants. It includes the interactive process form 4105F. Policy 4105A covers pregnancy workplace accommodations for employees and applicants. Policy 4105B discusses religious workplace accommodations for employees and applicants. Policy 4106 is about the Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA. We use a rolling 12-month period measured backward. We did not take the optional language to any limitations on FMLA, and that is law. Policy 4107 covers military leave for employees. Policy 4108 was adopted in January 2024. Policy just so you know your numbering system. Policy 4109 is about break time for nursing mothers. There was no need for the optional language because it's already covered. So. Policy 4110 is about reimbursement for expenses for employees. Policy 4111 is about professional development and how it is offered and logged. Policy 4112 is about extracurricular employees and volunteers. And policy 4113, I'm not quite sure if it's in your packet. It is, okay. Because that was new state law, and we literally got the policy on Tuesday at our meeting. So they changed the law, we have the update, we got it, so we're adopting it. We're trying. It's the new state law about Michigan earned sick time. Policy 4201 is about employees' ethics and standards. Policy 4202 is about mandated reporting to CPS and APS. This covers yearly training for our staff. We took the optional language on this because sexual abuse is covered in our age-appropriate reproductive health curriculum. Policy 4203 is about corporal punishment and the limited use of reasonable force, and that is following the law. Policy 4204 is about the confidentiality of student information. Policy 4205 is about hiring and background checks. It says that vacancies must be posted for 5 days. It talks about confidentiality of employee information. All that. Policy 4206 is about employment contracts. We kept optional language that allows for an administrator's contract. There is a section in there about moral turpitude. So that is in there. It was in there before, it's still in there. Nothing's changed. Policy 4207 was adopted in January 2024. Policy 4208 is about what happens if an employee is arrested, charged, or convicted of a crime. Policy 4209 says that employees cannot provide abortion referrals and assistance. This is also state law. Policy 4210 prohibits the use of drugs, alcohol, and tobacco products. It also discusses the Omnibus Transportation Employee Testing Act. Policy 4211 is about testing our transportation employees for alcohol and controlled substances. We do random testing at a rate of 20%. Policy 4212 describes how the district may require an employee to receive assistance if they have substance abuse problems. Policy 4213 is the anti-nepotism policy. An employee's relative or significant other may be hired if there's not a conflict of interest and with notice to the board. Policy 4214 is about an employee's outside activities and employment. They work for us first, but they can have other employment. They just can't do that job while they're at work for us. Sense. Policy 4215 covers district technology and acceptable use policy. Policy 4216 is about employees' personal communication devices. We did not take the optional language because unauthorized recordings of students, parents, coworkers, non-public meetings is not allowed. So we did not take that. Policy 4217 covers social media use by employees and then the ethics around that use. Policy 4218 discusses employee dress and appearance. Policy 4219 is about employee attendance. Policy 4220 is about employee use or disposal of district property. We did recommend the optional language where someone can get permission from the superintendent to use something. We were saying, like, sometimes you take a Chromebook home, or you don't want to call the superintendent every single time. But you can get permission. Policy 4221 is about an employee's speech, especially as role models. This covers curriculum, instruction, and controversial topics, and the guidelines to follow. Policy 4222 says that unauthorized work stoppage and strikes are not allowed. That is state law. Policy 4223 is about resignations of employees and the procedures that we follow for that. Policy 4224 is about personnel files and payroll information. Policy 4225 discusses an employee's ability to temporarily do remote work. We had a lot of discussion around this because the Americans with Disabilities Act may require this, so we're suggesting to adopt that at this time. Policy 4226 is intentionally left blank by Troon just for their numbering system. Policy 4227 is intentionally left blank. It does not apply to us because we do not have $5 million in Medicaid billing. Policy 4228 says that employees who have no expectation, let me try that again, says that employees have no expectation of privacy in connection with their use of district property and equipment. Policy 4229 is about the acceptable use of generative artificial intelligence. Our staff is currently doing professional development on this topic. We are recommending adopting the policy. We don't recommend the optional language that requires employees to obtain prior approval because the technology is already being used on a daily basis. We're already using it. It's there. They're using it. That would be cumbersome, once again, to ask every time you want to do that. Policy 4301 is the definition of a non-exempt staff. Policy 4302 covers employee pay, including minimum wage and overtime for non-exempt staff, which is our hourly staff. Policy 4303 is about compensatory time for non-exempt staff. That is not recommended at this time. We have a contract, and that one is intentionally left blank. Policy 4304 is about employee timekeeping responsibilities for non-exempt staff. Policy 4305 is intentionally left blank because there was just a change in the law. Policy 4306 covers assignment and transfer. Policy 4307 is about performance evaluation. This is a long section, thank you. Policy 4308 is about reduction and recall of non-exempt staff. This is also covered in the contract. Policy 4309 is about discipline and termination. Policy 4401 is the definition of professional staff. Policy 4402 is about the placement of professional staff and is consistent with policy 1101. Policy 4403 is about performance evaluation and tenured teachers who are highly effective for 3 years will be on a 3-year cycle for evaluation. Policy 4404 covers performance-based compensation. Policy 4405 is about reduction in force and recall. We chose option 1 on that one because it aligns with our practices and agreements, and the number there is 18 months. A teacher is eligible for recall for 18 months. Policy 4406 allows for professional improvement sabbaticals. Policy 4407 is about discipline for professional staff. Policy 4408 covers termination of professional staff and the procedures that we must follow. Policy 4409 is about non-renewal of professional staff. This is a revised language from what we adopted in January 2024. There's some optional language we did not take about probationary teachers in the 4 years. But it says teachers must have advance notice if the board's considering non-renewal. Does that make sense? Okay, let me know if you have questions. Policy 4501 is the definition of an administrator or supervisor. Policy 4502 is about the assignment and transfer of administrators. Policy 4503 is about the performance evaluations for administrators. Policy 4504 is about performance-based or merit pay for administrators. Policy 4505 covers reduction and recall of administrators. This time period is 12 months. Policy 4506 covers discipline. We did not take the optional language on this. It talks about going in front of the board and all of this other stuff that is not our common practice. So, policy 4507 is about termination of administrators and supervisors and the procedures for that. Policy 4508 is about non-renewal and the procedures for non-renewal of administrators. This is different from termination. This follows the revised school code. Recommendations for non-renewal need to come in front of the board at least 60 calendar days before the contract expires. Policy 4601 is about the superintendent specifically. The optional language here allows the superintendent to suspend a student up to 59 days and expel based on policy 5206. Our practice has been to bring expulsions to the board. So we're going to stick with that. Policy 4602 describes how we hire a new superintendent. We just did that. Let's not do that for a while. Thank you. Policy 4603 outlines the procedures for the superintendent's performance evaluation. Policy 4604 explains what happens if the superintendent is absent or incapacitated. Policy 4605 discusses the guidelines for accepting gifts and donations. Policy 4606 covers discipline and termination of the superintendent. And policy 4607 is about the non-renewal process for the superintendent. That is the first reading of the 4000s. The second reading is always a little shorter. And these are available for review here at the administration building and for all of you in the shared drive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President Collins. Are there any questions? I'll let you take a drink if you, before questions, but does any board member have any questions?
Not really a question. I just want to thank the committee for all the work. I know since we're moving from Neola, which has a different numbering system, to Troon, that like a lot of this feels new, but it's so much of what we have in our policy is what's required by federal law, by state law. It's, you know, described in our contracts that we have, and so it feels like a lot, and I know there's a lot of reviewing it, but there's also, I appreciate you highlighting the changes because there aren't actually many substantive changes. It's just to move to this other system, which we have found to be more user-friendly and actionable for our administrators. And so it's a lot of work. I just want to thank you all because I know what it takes to go through these and think about what they mean.
It's tons of fun. It's a great time.
Fun's a strong.
Any other questions or comments for Vice President Collins? All right, thank you once again. We will move on to Mr. Jensen, short-term Jensen. Is what I brought. He will discuss the budget amendment for the 24-25 year. And I know in talking with board members, we have about 35 questions for you already. So
Great.
on your last evening, we'll be here for a couple hours with you, if that's okay.
Perfect.
All right.
So good evening, thank you. So I am here to talk about our current year 24-25 budget amendment, as well as touch a little bit on next year as we've gotten some information from the governor's office about her budget. As you know, at the beginning of the year, by July 1, we do have to present a budget to the board, and the board has to approve a budget for the year. And we base those projections on our best knowledge that we have at the time. So at this point, midway through the year, we take the information that we've gathered, you know, from changes from what we projected to what became real in the budget, and we adjust our budget accordingly about this time of year. So I'm going to walk through some of the changes we have. So our revised budget in the left column is about $38.5 million. It's about a $700,000 adjustment from our projected budget. Both revenues and expenditures changed. And as you know, what doesn't show up here is we have an expenditure line item of our contingency fund of $500,000 that we don't expect to spend, which in turn we will add to fund balance, increase in our fund balance for the year. So on this next slide, this is our revenue adjustments from what we had originally projected. We originally projected a $250 per pupil increase, as well as flat enrollment. As you can see, our enrollment did increase by 26 pupils, but we did not get a foundation increase. And you'll see on the next, as we go through this, what other changes there were on the expense side to offset the revenue reduction. There was a little bit of a MEPSRS rate adjustment, about $120,000. At-risk funds increased a little bit. Our special ed funds decreased at the state level. And then a couple grants, the Michigan Kids Back on Track grant went away. We had to reduce our revenues there. And then 31AA, the security and mental health grant, that was reduced. It was about cut in half, so we had to reduce our revenue projections for that as well. And then some other minor adjustments at the state level. Then our property tax adjustment, property values increase, property tax revenue increases. Our ISD revenue that we received from the ISD, the funding claim that we received from them increased this current year. And then we had an HRA grant last year that we did not get this year again. So that totals our $700,000 increase or decrease in revenues. And on the expense side, what the state did is they took away our foundation allowance, but they also decreased the retirement rate to make up for that lost revenue. So they just decreased our expenses that the district would incur of about $800,000. And you'll see some other minor adjustments in staffing. That's just based on our staffing levels that we ended up at the beginning of the year. And then a slight adjustment in our substitute revenue or substitute expenditures, and then some other minor adjustments throughout the expenditures. So as I mentioned earlier, adding $500,000 to our fund balance will put us at about 8% at the end of this year, 24, 25. And I put the next couple of years because, as we talked about last year, we wanted to get to our 10%, and adding $500,000 in those two consecutive years will get us to that 10%. So we're still on track for that. And then as we look forward to the governor's budget, she did propose a $390 per pupil increase to $10,000 per pupil. That's about $1 million in our budget. She increased at-risk funding about 4.1%. It's about $37,000 for us. But there is going to be a change in the retirement rate. The district will be required to pay additional retirement expense. That's going to be about $266,000. Those are the known kind of what the governor put out there. As you know, the House and the Senate will all come out with, they'll each come out with a budget, and then they'll go to conference. And, you know, we like to have a budget before the end of June. Not hold my breath, but we can always hope for that. But at the end, by June, we will take our, what we have, the information we have from the House, the governor, the Senate, and from our associations, and take, the best information that we have and propose a budget for next year. Looking at enrollment, this is just a preliminary look as we just take our retention ratio, our five-year retention ratios, and move those numbers forward. You'll see that we currently have 2592 was our fall count. This projects us to be about 2605, about a 13 pupil increase. We don't know right now what we're going to start with. We'll gather more information, look at these as well, and then look at developments and get the information that we can, and then come up with an estimated pupil increase for next year. So as we look at next year, I just want to, reiterate that we'll continue to monitor the budget process at the state level, monitor our staffing needs, look at our sinking fund, as well as I do want to point another key point out as we look at next year's budget. The special ed funding formula at the ISD level is going to be changing. There was a year and a half look at our funding formula at the special ed funds that we received from the state, and they did change the formula. Us and one other district are really the only two that it negatively impacts. But the funding formula, is probably a better formula based on the needs of, the special ed students. And but I do want to note that this does not change the services that we provide our special ed students. This, we currently have about 10% of our funds that are out of general fund. This will just increase that percentage. It will in no way affect the services that we offer our special ed students. I just want to make sure that that's known. And it's just, unfortunately, it just negatively impacts our budget as we look towards next year. That is all I have, and I will take 2 hours of questions, right?
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your explanation on the special funding formula change. Do any members have questions for Rick?
I just have a clarification. At the end, you said 10% of the general funds go to special education students. Does that mean 10% of our budget, or did I misunderstood?
No, 10%, our special education, but 10% of our special, or what we spend on special ed comes from the general fund.
Okay, okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
I just had just a point of clarification. We've had lots of conversations in committee about our fund balance and how we're trying to increase it.
Yes.
But for audience members here or virtually, can you just explain very briefly what the fund balance is and why we have one?
Our fund balance is, you know, what a lot of people call it our rainy day fund or our reserve funds that we have available. We like to have as much available because the way we're funded through the state, we don't receive, the state budget year doesn't align with ours, and so if the higher fund balance we have, we're able to bridge the gap between when we get our funds and when we start our year, and we can reduce our borrowing that, you know, increases our interest expense.
But it's, you know, it's also kind of like our savings account, right?
It is.
In case of a downturn in the
Yes.
economy, we have a little extra in the bank to be able to, if there are cuts from the state, that we can kind of use that funding to be able to supplement any cuts there might be. So
Correct.
it's kind of, I always think of it as kind of our own savings account. And
Yep.
we, you know, it's just like your household, you keep a certain amount in your savings account
In case your furnace goes out.
in case I lose my job, which,
Right.
you know, I never know, it could happen. But yeah.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
Correct.
Any other questions for Rick?
Just, did I see something? Isn't the governor's budget through the House?
no.
Then
Not
who
yet.
sent me that? Somebody sent me something and I read
I
it.
think the House proposed a budget
Is that what it was?
that they passed, but it was limited in scope in that they were funding things in the event of, they were funding
Government
essential items in the event that they couldn't complete a budget by their time frame.
That's what
Yeah,
it
it was a
was.
very
Okay.
minimalistic.
Correct. It was, so to speak, bare bones.
It was like
Yeah.
the foundation allowance and special ed and a couple other things that, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
in case there was a government shutdown, they wanted to be able to fund the essentials.
Essentials.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else for Rick tonight?
No, I just, since he's up there and it's the last chance to kind of make him embarrassing. No, Rick, I want to thank you. You have been a great teacher in my years on the board and really helped to answer all the questions, particularly when you're talking about the rainy day fund. And there were periods during COVID when nobody knew what was going on with the state budget, and there were all sorts of questions about all sorts of funding being taken back, and you helped walk us through that. So I hope, Scott, you appreciate, he kept saying "we," which now means you, or will mean you very soon. But I just wanted to say thanks, because I've appreciated all that I've learned from you.
Thank you very much.
And
Can I take a moment to say that too? I just want to say thank you too, because you've answered every question I've ever had. I'll be like, how many school of choice kids? And he's like, boom. How much money for this? Boom. Like, he has it memorized, you guys. And so I just appreciate your expertise and knowledge, and for guiding us all along the way through school finance, because it's a really unique thing.
Yes.
So you're great at it, and
Thank you.
enjoy your retirement though.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I want to echo, I joked about short term, but you deserve this retirement. As a member, or as a previous member of the Finance and Facilities Committee, I really appreciated, to your point, you answering all my questions when I was on there. To your point, you always seem to have the answer, never had to look it up. I don't understand that and how that mind works, but I appreciate it, and thank you for your service to this district. You've been here longer than many of us up here, so we really appreciate it, and we hope you enjoy your retirement. And don't listen to Patrick. You don't have to come here. You can just watch online.
Just watch.
That's good. Sneaky.
Well, thank you very much. It's really been a pleasure and an honor to work at this district.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to board reports. First, we will hear from the report from the Policy and Personnel Committee. I think I know a lot of what you've been doing, but
Yes. We met last Tuesday. We had a Troon policy review, as you can imagine. I already said it was 3 hours. In addition, though, we did do our regular committee work, which was talking about the athletic director search progress, our schools of choice timeline, the plans for graduation, and we got an update on the budget amendment as well.
thank you very much. Vice President Collins, any questions for Vice President Collins? Nope. All right, we will move on to the board report for Finance and Facilities Committee.
Thank you. The Finance and Facilities Committee meeting met last Thursday, March 6th. Finance Director Jensen walked us through the budget amendment that he presented tonight. We also talked about our Kids Connection program, which is a self-supporting nonprofit program coordinated by the Haslett Center for Community Education. The district has not implemented a Kids Connection increase in rates since 2021, and so there will be a slight increase in rates for our summer program and for the 25-26 school year. We also talked about community education fees, and again, there will be a slight increase in some of our registration fees just to help with rising costs. And finally, we talked about school of choice. Superintendent Malley discussed what the district has historically done with our school of choice practices, as well as a plan for the 25 and 26 school year. School of choice does open up on May 1st, 2025 this year. And that was it.
Thank you very much, Treasurer Warzynski. Any questions? Seeing none, we will move on to Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Report.
Yeah, thank you. Our leadership team met last week, and we worked through subcommittees. We have 3 of them to advance several important initiatives. One group is developing strategies to ensure families, especially those new to the community or non-native English speakers, feel welcome and included in our events that we typically have on the calendar, such as kindergarten roundup or orientation events. Another team is represented by Haslett Public Schools. I'm sorry, they are currently representing Haslett Public Schools at the MSU Job Fair that took place today, so pretty exciting. You'll notice on the table when y'all walked in were some folders that they had created and printed in order to bring to that job fair, as well as these wonderful Apple squish balls that apparently important swag to have at a job fair, as well as just getting a table presentation ready and a team of people prepared in order to be there to try to recruit. We look forward to learning from their experience to improve our approach as we expand recruitment efforts to more job fairs across the state. So this is kind of like a first run at learning from that and being a part of that. So look forward to hearing what that group has to say. A third subcommittee is currently identifying the hidden costs of being a Haslett student, some ambitious work developing internal tools and resources to help us gauge those expenses that we don't typically think about, that aren't really formal, that become part and parcel of being a family in a school community. And we're doing that as a way of having some conversations about how to better support students with need, ultimately removing barriers in order to make sure that more students can participate in all the wonderful extracurricular and club type activities we have as a district. So pretty exciting, work happening through those different subcommittees in order to just try to make our school environment more accessible to more students and to try to recruit, cast as broad a net as possible to recruit a group of individuals to come work for us to teach our kids. So good work.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. Any questions for the superintendent about DEI? No? All right. We will move on to items from board members. Does any board member have anything they'd? Yes.
Yeah, so I've said this before, but I sometimes feel like I can't say it enough, which is just thank you to our community for how much they support our schools. Superintendent Malley talked about all the events that are going on, and if I try to list them, I'm going to forget big chunks. But it's always great to be at events and to be able to talk with all sorts of members in our community to see how they're engaged and involved, to hear their questions to me, their comments to me. It just speaks volumes about why our district is successful. And I'm not going to speak for anybody here because everybody's got different preferences. I just want to say I'm always excited when people come up, ask me questions. I'm always happy to give answers of something, we've done here on a board. I'm happy to give, my perspective. Luckily I don't sit in Greg's seat anymore, so I don't speak on behalf of the whole board. I can only speak on behalf of myself. But I just really appreciate the engagement and the dialogue. I think that that's something that is ever more important, and it's something that we get the chance to role model for all of our students. And I just wanted to thank the community members that I had a chance to interact with these last few weeks and have some of those conversations.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything under items from board members? I will take this opportunity to recognize we have a former board member in our audience tonight, Joshua Morey. Welcome. He's here with his son Archer. And I always enjoyed Josh's perspective as a board member, so great to see you again. Thanks for coming by. If there are no other items from board members, we'll move on to correspondence and comments from the public. Secretary Polverento, do we have any correspondence?
We had one email from Mr. Kestner to a majority of the board related to policy decision, and I believe that was responded to on behalf of the board by President Byrd.
Mm-hmm. All right. Seeing no further correspondence, we will move on to comments from the public. As we know, there is a 5-minute time limit, and any member of the community is welcome to come up if you would state your name, and you have the floor. If there are any concerns or responses needed, either myself, Superintendent Malley, or Associate Superintendent Limbert will respond otherwise. So do we have any comments from the public this evening?
It will not take long. Okay. I'd like to share, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to the thoughtful efforts you are putting into the Imagine 2030 initiative for Haslett Public School. As a parent of 2 daughters, I'm grateful for the dedication and commitment you have shown to our community and the quality education provided since my children's early years. I would also like to share some thoughts and personal experience regarding sex education. My daughter, currently in 9th grade, is studying the reproductive system as part of her biology class at sex education. She has encountered some challenges understanding and memorizing the terminology and the function of the body system involved. As a registered nurse, I have been able to assist her in understanding the material better. With additional explanation, my daughter has not only understood the facts, but has also become more interested in the subject. I have tried to explain the material not only through factual knowledge, but by providing context and additional meaning. For example, I discussed the value of each individual life, emphasizing that all of us are deserving of respect regardless of the process of conception. To illustrate this point, I share the following. For conception to occur, only one sperm is required to fertilize an egg, but millions of sperm are released, with only one successfully penetrating the egg to initiate fertilization. The process is incredibly comparative. Out of approximately 300 million sperms, only one succeeds. As of January 1st, 2025, the population of the United States was estimated to be around 341 million people. This means that every individual who exists today has already triumphed in an extraordinary competition, outlasting nearly the entire US population to come into being. One of the key purposes of education is to instill in students a sense of respect for others. And I believe that sex education provides a valuable opportunity to reinforce this lesson. It can help students understand that they are valuable and deserving of respect. Furthermore, it can foster self-awareness, encouraging each student to recognize their own worth and potential. I have noticed a rise in mental health challenges among students, including depression, and I believe that such education could be an important tool in supporting their well-being. I would like to share another personal experience related to my time as a substitute school nurse in the Lansing School District from 2008 to 2011. I encountered 2 high school students in distress, one who came to check a pregnancy test and another seeking assistance with her next planned contraceptive implant. This moment left a lasting impression on me, and it inspired me to begin praying for the future of the next generation. As I researched the history of sex education in the United States, I learned that it began with Title X of the Public Health Service Act, enacted in 1970 under President Richard Nixon. Furthermore, I reviewed the Haslett Public School Board Policy 2004-18, which outlines the district approach to sex education. While I'm not an expert in the field of education, I like to offer my perspective as a parent. I believe that sex education can be a powerful tool in helping students understand their own worth and the importance of respecting others. It can inspire students to build supportive and respectful communities, and it can also play a role in improving mental health by fostering a sense of self-respect and confidence. I fully appreciate all the work that Haslett Public School leadership is doing now. If there's any way I can contribute or support these efforts, I'll be happy to offer my assistance. Thank you once again for your dedication to the students and families of Haslett Public School. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments this evening. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Tag team, we did not practice. Well, in the interest of daylight savings time, we're here to bring a little light to your evening. Just some good news that's happening in addition to the report from our student representative. At the high school, Student Council will be visiting Waverly this week for the CAAC Summit. This is the second year where area student councils have collaborated together along with their advisors to see how things are going and how things run in each of the buildings and to share ideas and knowledge about what works well for them. Our Quiz Bowl is headed to the state finals next month. And next week is our annual Inclusion Week. Each day has a theme to promote unity in our student body, and we'll be concluding with our student showcase, which is this year 3 of the student showcase. Lots of years of the student showcase, which is a little more than a talent show.
people were going. I was like,
Oh, no, the whole school's going. That's great. And our students will showcase their talents. So not just singing and dancing, but poetry and like a little bit of TED Talk action, if you will. They're sharing their knowledge on their interests. And that will conclude with a unified basketball game to take us into spring break.
We're going to go with Ralia Elementary. They love local. Last week, Ralia Elementary celebrated March's Reading Month with their community partner, Schuler Books and Okemos. Students and families enjoyed special evenings around the store, making bookmarks, going on a scavenger hunt, exploring syllables and words with Michigan State students, and more. The evening was even more spectacular with special stories read by Ralia staff in the newly designed author space. It was a beautiful night to celebrate literacy with one of our most treasured community partners.
At Murphy Elementary, March is Reading Month, and the activities are in full swing. Students have a book bracket, think about the NCAA tournament, with each grade level classroom compiled of Caldecott winning picture books. They're currently into their final 4 round. Various classrooms have decorated the hallways and classroom doors with pieces of the illustrations or plots of their class's book. And finally, they also have a calendar of events for each day in March that feature things to wear, things to bring, or things to do that relate to the various pieces of literacy. There are days where they can read a book about spring as they're in the spring month, or days where they can read a book about a superhero and dress as one too.
At Wilkshire, the Young Fives teachers received a $1,500 foundation grant to update and revitalize the outdoor classroom. They look forward to sharing the pictures this spring. The book fair was during conference week and was well attended. They appreciate Mrs. Jordan's time and effort in organizing this. They are also doing March's Reading Month. Each classroom received a book called Remarkably You from the PTO. This focuses on celebrating our unique gifts. Theme days includes wear a shirt with words, wear a hat, cozy up with a book, and beach days. Teachers also recorded themselves reading, and students were asked to guess which teacher was the reader. Wilkshire also invites all Wilkshire families to attend family night at Schuler Books on Tuesday, March 18th from 4:30 to 6:30. Okay, I'm gonna go fast. Middle school. Bridget Booth is an 8th grade science teacher there, and she has been the advisor of the Conservation Club, reaching interested students about environmental responsibilities. She is currently the chair for the Climate Education Committee for the Michigan Alliance for Educational and Outdoor Education. She has reconstituted the outdoor space at the middle school to provide an outdoor learning platform, and has recently received a fellowship through the Change Fellowship through the North American Association of Environmental Education. She has also taken on an extra role as the Michigan State lead to subject climate. This past weekend, she was joined by 2 students at the Michigan Science Teacher Association to discuss the collaboration between our students, teachers, and administration to enhance the effort of sustainability to our district.
45 seconds
Okay.
to spare.
And my name is Erin Rooney. This is Diane Littleton. We were so nervous to get everything out. We didn't introduce ourselves, but thank you again for giving us this opportunity, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening?
Hello, Jeff Kestner, Haslett resident. I want to begin by thanking Rick Jenkins for his leadership as a director of finance over the last 12 years. Rick's been instrumental in the development of our district's budget, has proven himself to be the ultimate professional and team player. All the best going forward, Rick. At the February 24th board meeting, I spoke about an issue in school. Students who identify as furries wear tails and meow. Students find them distracting, have trouble learning, and resort to muffling their ears to block out the noise. Parents say with an environment exists where they, students, and teachers are afraid to speak out for fear of backlash. I then followed up with this question. The Board of Education exists to educate our children, to ensure an environment conducive to learning, an environment where students and teachers are not afraid to voice concerns. What policy changes will you make so this becomes a reality in the instances I just described? Please reply via email. To no surprise of mine, I received no email reply. So one has to assume that you are not willing to provide these students an environment free of distractions in which they can learn. So now the question becomes, what are you doing here? You were elected, you were hired to educate the kids. Mind-boggling. On March 4th, I sent an email to board members Byrd, Collins, Warzinski, Pavarento, and Clark, which said the following. At the February 12th board meeting, you voted in favor of Policy 2504, which reduces public comment from 5 to 3 minutes, a reduction of 40%. There's a fact sheet on the table right over there that is present at every board meeting, which says, quote, our Board of Education is a 7-member legislative body elected by residents to be advocates for our children and act in the best interest of our local schools and communities, end quote. Why was it in the best interest of our schools and communities to reduce public comment / free speech by 40%? In the spirit of transparency, I will read your responses or lack of one at the March 10th board meeting. I did receive a response which said, this brings us in line with other districts. My response is, so what? Okemos has 6 minutes, the Michigan Board of Education has 5 minutes, other school boards have 5 minutes. Another reason that was given was during COVID, there was a lot of speakers. Well, newsflash, COVID was 4 years ago, has no relevance today. There is no serious person who believes limiting free speech, which is the bedrock of our democracy, is a good thing. So let the record show it's my belief, and many in this community, this vote was done to silence me, because I have the courage to speak out against many of your policies that have been so destructive to our schools. The idea that you are willing to limit the rest of the community's free speech just to get back at me is very unbecoming of a school board. The U.S. Department of Education recently announced, if you see evidence that your school board is allowing, promoting, or trying to hide DEI, it can now be reported to the U.S. Department of Education. The website is enddei.ed.gov. Things they're looking for include training materials, presentations being presented to teachers, and boy, have I got a lot of that from my FOIA requests. Handouts, affinity groups, events, other expressions of DEI that are being carried out within the school system, definitely happening. Hiring based on DEI practices, creation and existence of roles explicitly related to DEI, definitely happening. School resources spent on anything woke, definitely happening. And the list goes on. So it appears that there's a lot of cleanup to do on aisle 5 for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening? Seeing no one else, we will move on to our consent agenda for the evening. And the consent agenda includes 5 items tonight, and they are the approval of minutes for the February 24th regular board meeting, the approval of minutes for the February 24th closed session meeting, and the approval of proposed new and revised board policies, the 3000 series. And number 4, the approval of new, revised, and rescinded board policies. Most of them, or looks like all of them, the 2000 series. And finally, the approval of virtual learning day at the Haslett High School for grades 9, 10, and 12. Would any member like any of the items on the consent agenda pulled for this evening? Seeing none, I will take a motion on approval of tonight's consent agenda.
I'll motion to make an approval for tonight's consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for the 5 items on tonight's consent agenda. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The consent agenda for tonight is adopted. Yes. Yep, please. I'll give
All
you
right,
the floor.
before announcements, Dylan, if you want to come join us back up at the podium. This is the hot seat moment of the night where we can wonder what comments, questions you might have, and also our board members may have an opportunity to ask you a question as well. So any general takeaways?
No, I thought all this was very interesting, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you.
For a student being here through the 4000 series of our policy, was there anything that Vice President Collins said about, no, I'm just kidding, but I do wonder sometimes though,
We can give him the binder and he.
well, some homework perhaps. We'll talk,
He doesn't have it.
we'll talk on Thursday when we see each other at the Student Advisory Board. But I just wonder, just generally surprising that there are so many different rules and guidelines that govern a school district like that, or just kind of expected? Did you?
I mean, I expected there were a lot, but
Yeah.
it was interesting to see them all laid out right there.
For all of us, yeah. Okay, thanks. Any questions from the board for Dylan?
Just because I've known Dylan for a while, and apparently it's my role to embarrass people up at the podium, but do you want to tell everybody, since you're getting ready to graduate,
Yeah.
what you're doing next?
Sure. So I am going to Michigan Tech University. I'm going to be studying aerospace and mechanical engineering there, which I'm super excited about. And I also will have the opportunity to run cross country and track there.
Fantastic.
That's why. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where are you going to run up there?
I'm not quite sure yet, but they claim that they're really good at plowing the roads.
Okay, let's hope so. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Did you have to miss tryouts tonight or anything for track?
Nope.
Okay. I was gonna thank you if you did, if you had to sacrifice that.
All right, thank you so much, Dylan. Really
Thanks,
appreciate you sticking
Dylan.
around. Yeah, all the best to you.
Good luck
Appreciate
to you. All right. Thank you, Superintendent Malley. We'll move on to announcements now. The Policy and Personnel Committee meeting, the next one anyway, is scheduled for Tuesday, April 8th, 7:45, right here in the admin building. And the next Finance and Facilities Committee meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 10th at 8 a.m. right here. And then finally, the regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting will be held April 14th, 7 o'clock, right here. That's it for announcements. I will take a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for adjournment. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned for this evening.